We're delighted to have Chris Blythe with us this afternoon, the Chief Executive of the Chartered Institute of Building. So good afternoon, Chris.
Afternoon, Ed.
Now, a question for you. So from your macro point of view, what do you see as the upcoming challenges facing the construction industry, particularly in a post-Brexit Britain?
Well, I think the main challenge is going to be that there's going to be no shortage of work. We may have a shortage of people, but I really do think there'll be no shortage of work. When you look at the government's agenda, it doesn't really matter which political party you look at, they've all got the same basic objectives around housing, infrastructure and so on. There's going to be plenty of work for the construction industry, and I don't see where the next recession is going to come from as far as the construction industry is concerned. There may be slight sort of fallbacks in little areas depending on the flow of business, but overall I don't see there being a massive fallback as we've seen in some years recently.
So if no recession and away from a boom and bust market, is there need for change?
I think there is absolutely a need for change, because we're not going to do what we have to do without change. If there is all that work around, there may be a shortage of labour, particularly following Brexit. If new rules come around the type of labour that we're likely to have, then we're going to have to find different ways of doing things, and this means innovation and maybe creates an opportunity for new players to come to the marketplace.
So very often innovation and change in practice requires investment. Is there really the appetite out there to invest in enough quantity into the construction market to make these changes happen?
I think there are some people in the current construction industry who are prepared to invest, and we've seen that from Ray O'Rourke and what he's been doing there. But I think in some of the other parts of the market, I don't think there is much appetite. Although they're making 2 or 3% net margin, if they're making 20+% return on capital employed, I think there's a sense where we're doing okay. But I don't think that's right, because the levels of capital employed in construction are so low as to mean that actually we're looking at the wrong numbers. And I think people from other parts of the economy, in other areas, maybe they've got more money, will see, big opportunity to make some reasonable returns in terms of what they're used to making from construction.
So does that end up with a net rise in construction costs from a client point of view? Are we doing it too cheaply, or are savings therefore coming out of the construction process to deliver those returns?
No, I don't think there's necessarily savings coming out of the construction process unless we're talking about volume, and I think in things where we're doing a lot of things the same way, you may get the opportunity there. I think what may happen is reductions in time, and as we all know, time is money. For example, I don't think off-site necessarily building by building is cheaper, but if you save time and you can improve quality, you've obviously got a better product. So I don't necessarily think it's pure cash savings. I think it's being able to turn the money over quicker.
So from the point of view of the Chartered Institute, and I suppose from your members, are you concerned about a potential influx of new entrants?
I don't think so. I think anyone who really cares about the industry really wants to see new people coming in with new ways, new ideas, and bringing in fresh talent, because we depend on talent in the construction to move forward, and if we don't bring new talent in, we're not going to make progress.
And where do you see the skills shortage, the talent gap, and the potential for these new entrants to come from?
Well, I think the manufacturing industry has a lot to offer. I mean, particularly if we're getting into seeing a lot more off-site. I think the issue there is using the talent that's already out there in the manufacturing base. I'm a little bit sceptical of attempts to train people who are used to building single items and saying, well, you can train them to do multiple items. I mean, there are thousands of people out there who know how to build and do mass production. So I think the thing is to sort of follow on from those skill sets and move forward like that.
Well, we touched briefly there on innovation. So what do you see the scale and the nature of innovation that may come into the market?
Well, I think it's obvious that there will be new products and processes coming in place, and we've talked about off-site and what have you. It's not exactly new. It's being able to pull it together in the scale that is required to make it viable. And I think part of that then in terms of innovation is funding and new sources of money and people prepared to invest for the long term. construction is notoriously short-term, of course, between boom and bust. So you're looking for long-term. So new ways of funding products and processes, I think, are all vitally important. And then I think the growth of technology will have a big impact, and that will change dramatically, I think, the shape of some of the jobs that are done. I think some of the jobs that have always traditionally been done will probably disappear and be overtaken by technology, but that will create brand new jobs in the industry, jobs that 10 years ago we didn't even know existed and probably still don't exist, but in a couple of years' time they may do. New jobs that I already know about are things like data handlers and all of that, led by BIM, and that's got to go a lot further forward as well. But all these things will, I think, dramatically change the way the industry has to work, whether we're making multiples or one-offs.
Absolutely. And so with the new jobs, hopefully with innovation, with a bit more funding, how do we attract the new blood that we need into the industry?
Well, I think having a lot of the processes that other sectors have will make a big difference, because if we just look as though we're stuck doing things the way the Romans did, I don't think we'll be an exciting industry. But if we look to be doing things the way the IT industry is doing, the manufacturing industry is doing, we have a credible position to attract those type of people who would go there to us. So it's about not being different, it's actually being very much similar in the way we operate.
So and in this change in industry, new people coming in, potential entrants, new recruits coming through, how do you see the role of and the future of the Chartered Institute going forward?
My biggest challenge is now making sure that we have qualifications and certifications which are appropriate to the new sorts of jobs that will be coming in. So for us it's a question of always looking forward and being prepared to modernise and update. Not about throwing away traditional standards, but actually being relevant to the people who are looking to work in the industry. With all the technology though, the one thing I am pretty sure about is that there'll still be a demand for people who have the ability to manage people and resources, and that really is what the heart of CIOB membership's about. So as long as we stay relevant, I think we've got a great future.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time this afternoon, Chris.
Thank you very much indeed, Ed.